Hello, screenwriters. We are back for another episode of Five Questions with a Screenwriter. And the screenwriter I have with me today, Jonathon Stewart. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on board and talking all things screenwriting.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, Patrick. I appreciate it. Looking forward to
Of
it.
course. All right, let's get started. So, what are three screenplays every new writer should read, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm sort of from the Robert McKee School of Training. He was one of my formative mentors and people who kind of taught me how to do what we do. And in his workshop, which I think you took, I think I saw he goes through Casablanca pretty with a pretty fine tooth comb. And it's definitely a screenplay that I would recommend new writers to read. Beyond that, I think it kind of depends on what your interest is, what your genre interest is. If you're into horror, there are some great horror screenplays that I would recommend reading. Some of the classics are still instructive to this day. If you're into suspense or drama, look to things like maybe Silence of the Lambs, which is a great sort of thriller, psychological thriller that holds up to this day.
Yes.
Or if you're into comedy, like I'd recommend, looking into great comedy scripts. And again, there's, how many different kinds of comedy too. I grew up in the 80s, so there's a whole lot of that sort of slapsticky stuff that I grew up on that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But like, still, some of the John Hughes stuff holds up. Some of it doesn't at all hold up. Um, you know, but it's hard. I think beyond Casablanca, which is just a brilliant thing, like page after page. I think it really depends on what you're hoping to get, like what you're hoping to write and what you're into. Um, if that's not too much of a cop out answer for you.
No, Casablanca, and then anything else that you love or that you write, you want to write in. So no, I love that answer. But I do
Awesome,
have a follow up though, based off what you mentioned with John Hughes and
please.
Robert McKee. So when I was growing up, getting into screenwriting, that name used to always pop up. Robert McKee. Robert McKee. I was like, how come this name keeps popping up? And not only the name, but this particular book story. Right, it just kept on popping up until one day I said, "Okay, I'm gonna get this book. I'm gonna read it and see what the big deal is." I read the book and I was like, "Wow, okay, I see, I see why." So yes,
Yeah, I was just going to echo that. That book is, I read the book first, and I remember being like, whoa, this is dense, and there's so much in here. I think it was when I saw his workshop where all of that stuff sort of crystallized for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I understand. I just understand how to tell a story so much better and what goes into it. And particularly from a structure standpoint and all that. So anyway, sorry to cut in on you there.
also too, you mentioned John Hughes. Now I gotta ask you. I know that this is probably going to be tough. Which John Hughes film is your is your favorite?
It's not tough at all. So my favorite, bar none for sure, is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I don't know if it was just it hit me at that right time of when I was a kid and saw it, or if there's just something about the unbridled optimism of Ferris Bueller, or you know the friendship that he and Cameron have, or the love story that he and Sloane have, or just the comedic orchestration of events that go out through that whole movie. Like that's one of my favorite movies, not just even like one of my favorite John Hughes movies for sure.
Sometimes I get torn between Ferris Bueller and The Breakfast Club, only because The Breakfast Club, I saw myself as a high school kid and these characters, and it was just like so amazing. But if I had to like choose with a gun to my head, ooh, I hope I wouldn't have a gun to my head. But if I did, someone had to like pick now, I probably would pick The Breakfast Club. But I probably would regret it in the afterlife, maybe.
I don't know, man. That's a good one. That's a good one too. And
Uh,
it's the Breakfast Club is one that we always talk about. We always refer to it as like it's just this iconic movie about cliques in high school, and so it definitely it definitely is up there for me too. Although I showed it to my kids, my wife and I showed it to our kids, and they were like, "This is so depressing." What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So speaking of books from earlier, now question number two: what is something a screenwriter will never learn in a book?
Uh, I think that just comes down to experience. Like you can read about story structure, you can read about how to craft a turn, you can read about how dialogue needs to be in the subtext. Um, but until you really have the opportunity to get in there and work it as a part of your own writing and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, there's no way you'll ever know how to put those um, sort of screenplay basics into actual practice. So I think it really is just that's an easy one. It's just experience.
Question number three: what is the greatest character arc you've seen in a story?
Oh man, the greatest character arc. Um, there are so many, and I would say any great film, part and parcel, generally has a great character arc. But the one that hits me off the top of my head is another one of my. Um, I don't know if it's my favorite movie, but it's a movie I always cite as what I think is one of the best movies ever produced. Is in Schindler's List, and Oskar Schindler certainly has a incredible character arc in that, going from selfish, you know, womanizer, completely self-absorbed and absorbed with his own wealth and legacy, to turning into somebody who is instrumental in saving the lives of hundreds of people. So hundreds and hundreds of people. Um, so I think that's one that comes to mind for me for sure. And what an incredible, uh, you know, story that he went through in order to have that happen.
You know what? As soon as you mentioned that, I got goosebumps because
Uh,
I remember that film and I know the story, and just like yeah, that is a great choice right here. I love it.
Thank you.
All right. Question number four: what was the first screenplay you wrote, and what was that writing process like?
Oh wow! So I think the first, very first, it wasn't a screenplay; it would have been a play. But the first play that I wrote was in fifth grade, and it was about Benjamin Franklin. And I tried to get into this under the hood of his story a little bit more than just like the key and the kite that we all know about. I don't know how successful I did that because I was only in fifth grade. The first screenplay that I actually wrote was uh, a short film that I did in college, which was basically just about a sort of down on your luck guy that discovers like a magical instrument that kind of turns his life upside down. And it's sort of like the be careful what you wish for thing. At the end of the story, he ends up getting rid of the magical device and embracing life as he knows it. Um, kind of trite, kind of not necessarily the most original thing ever, but it was the one of the things that was part of what got me inspired to eventually come out to Los Angeles and do this professionally. And the process at that point was just sit down with a pencil and paper and get the story out on paper. And I actually ended up shooting that one too. So there's some of that was discovered in the actual film production process as well. But that was the first one.
Wait, so let's go back. In fifth grade, wait, how old were you in fifth grade?
I mean, in fifth grade, I guess I must have been like 11 or 11, something like that. 10 or 11.
Okay, so as an 11-year-old, how did you even learn how to like write a stage play, or what was like? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think man, I've always loved. I've been a movie lover as long as I can remember, and so I think I had a certain understanding of how stories work just from the amount of movies that I watched. I was an only child too, so I watched a million movies growing up. Um, and I was always a good writer. I was always able to sort of express what I was thinking in actual words. And so I think, you know, the idea to write this play was felt reasonably natural. And I'm sure that I looked at some other existing plays in terms of like how to write the format or whatever. And it was also, again, you know, I was 11. It wasn't, this was no like Broadway masterpiece, you know, but it definitely was the beginning of, you know, a long, a long career of writing for entertainment, you know?
So there was a big gap between, when you were in fifth grade to college when you wrote your first, official screenplay. So, what did you learn between those years when you actually started your actual first screenplay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think a lot of that was just normal high school education stuff, middle school and high school education stuff. But, you know, by the time I got to high school, I had gotten much better at writing and kind of knew that I loved doing it. I always refer back to this AP composition class that I took in high school that really, I think, cranked my writing ability up like a couple notches. And then I was a big part of the journalism program in my high school. And I learned how to write succinctly that way and sort of that, you know, inverted pyramid style writing. And I think that just being able to write in different formats and to be able to write succinctly, like I said, I think those were sort of precursor tools to being able to figure out the format of screenwriting and figure out the way to be most effective in terms of telling a story in a screenplay.
All right, all right. So let's get to the final question. You get to plan and go on a non-romantic date with your current main character. What does that date look like?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to think about which non-romantic date I would want to take a character on right now. Um, so I guess I'll just go to a script that my writing partner and I are just finishing up, and the main character of that story is a dad, not terribly unlike me, but a little younger, perhaps. So, and
Uh-huh.
he's a movie lover too. Maybe you're starting to see how it's like pieces of me make it into my work. Um, but yeah, so I'm actually gonna take that a clever direction and say it's actually kind of like a little non-romantic date with a younger version of myself. And so I guess what I would say is like, you know, keep the faith, uh, keep doing good work, you know, spend time with your family, hold on to them, cherish those moments, and you know, enjoy this life that you've created for yourself. That would be what I would hope to impart.
This has been 5 questions with Jonathan E. Stewart. Jonathan, thank you so much.
It's
Are
my
you
pleasure.
currently working on anything at the moment that you could talk about?
You know what? I am working on several things. A few of them are at the pitch phase, which I definitely can't talk about. One of them is in a deal making phase right now that I can't talk about either, and the others are animation projects that studios keep sort of like totally tied down until you know they're ready to make an announcement about it. It's one of the not so awesome things about working in animation is we're definitely always sort of like in the background a little bit. But as soon as I'm able to announce any of those, I'll let you know.
Of course, that'd be great. All right, and so this one, hopefully, I think you can answer. What's a recent film or TV show you've watched you would recommend to our viewers?
Oh, sure. You know, uh, I've seen a few things recently. I've seen a few things that are a little that I don't know that I would totally recommend. 'Cause I try to get a little bit of I try to get a little bit of the good and the bad. But I will say I have been talking about this a little bit on social media. I'm a little late to the game on this, but I just finished season 3 of The Bear, which I know a lot of people have said they thought was a letdown after season 2, or that it was going in a weird direction. But I thought it was beautiful, man. I thought it was just an art a beautiful thing from an artistic standpoint, from being an artist and what it means to be an artist, and to what it means to be a part of a family, what it means to care about your craft. And it's so beautifully done. I can't more highly recommend it. And if you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, I would say get into it, stay past episode 4 or 5 of the first season, and you will not be sorry.
Okay, you know what? I have a confession to make right now to my viewers. It's kind of embarrassing me, being a lover of stories and screenwriting. I think you're like the fourth person I've interviewed on this show that recommended that to watch The Bear. So I'm gonna I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna hold myself accountable. So tonight, I don't know when you guys gonna watch this, but I'm gonna start watching The Bear. This is future Patrick speaking. I started watching The Bear. I'm on season 2, episode 9. My screenwriting friends did not steer me wrong. I'm really enjoying it. Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Yes, I love it.
I
And
have
yeah,
to.
give it a few episodes. It's more than just like yelling in a restaurant. Like, it definitely, the show's got some real gears in it, and it'll take you through it. It's awesome. Season 2 is amazing too. So
All right, Jonathan. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate it. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to share with our viewers?
no, man, Patrick, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. I really I appreciate your time just as much as you appreciate mine. And I guess I would just say to any of your viewers out there, like, keep keep doing it. Do the work. Get education from good sources, and um, keep those ideas flowing, and get your voice out in the world. We need it.